I never thought the people I loved most could turn against me. After 50 years of blood, sweat, and loyalty, I woke up one morning to discover my life, the house I built, the money I saved, the memories I cherished, wasn't mine anymore. They wanted me gone. They wanted me forgotten. And the worst part? It was my own son who smiled in my face while plotting it all. If you've ever sacrificed everything for family, only to feel betrayed, you'll understand what happened next. My name's John Thompson, I'm 68, and I spent most of my life in Cedarville, Ohio. I worked as a factory supervisor, sometimes putting in 12-hour days, sometimes weekends, just to make sure my kids had college money, that my wife and I could live comfortably, and that our house, our home, stood strong. Mornings are quiet here. I sit on the old wooden porch, the same one I sanded and polished myself 50 years ago, drinking my black coffee while the sun stretches across the cornfields. Family photos line the walls inside, smiling faces frozen in time. There's something comforting in routine, feeding the dog, listening to the radio play the morning news, greeting neighbors who've been part of my life longer than some of my own family has. But beneath that calm, there's a creeping unease I couldn't shake. Little things, my son David brushing off my opinions, my daughter's forced smiles when I asked for help with bills, whispers I wasn't meant to hear, told me that loyalty and decades of sacrifice didn't always guarantee respect. I never imagined it would lead to betrayal of this magnitude. David, my son, had always been a sharp kid. Grew up with opportunities one worked for him to have. But somewhere along the way, entitlement replaced gratitude. "Dad, you're too old to understand this. Let me handle everything," he said, one afternoon over lunch, tapping on his phone instead of meeting my eyes. I leaned back in my chair, heart sinking. "I've built this house, paid for your education, worked through sickness and fatigue. I think I know what I'm doing." He smirked. "Times change, Dad. You can't run this anymore." And just like that, decades of dedication and sweat became invisible. I realized then that my lifelong service to my family had been seen as a commodity, something they could control, manipulate, and discard. For weeks, I watched small signs, David taking over the bills without my consent, suggesting better ways to spend my savings, even trying to convince my wife that the house would be safer if I moved into a nursing home I had paid for. Each slight was sharper than the last, each word more humiliating. By the time I realized what was happening, the betrayal was already in motion. I'd spent half a century ensuring their future, yet they were plotting to erase mine. The morning I found the documents on the kitchen table, my world went silent. My retirement funds had been drained. The house, my sanctuary, my legacy, was listed for sale. And the final insult, a letter from the nursing home, welcoming me with clinical politeness to a place I had funded with my own money. David's words still echo in my head. "You're old, Dad. You wouldn't even notice. This is easier for all of us." I stared at the photos on the wall, their smiling faces staring back at me, and my chest tightened with heartbreak. 50 years of sacrifice, gone in a single stroke of entitlement. And yet, despite the devastation, I felt a calm resolve stirring deep inside. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't break. But I would act. I would reclaim my dignity, not through rage, but through patience, wisdom, and the quiet power of experience. I started slowly, almost imperceptibly. Nights became my planning sessions. I dug through documents, revisited old contracts, and made discreet calls to long-trusted friends. A retired lawyer neighbor offered guidance, a former colleague helped me understand loopholes I'd ignored in my youth. Each move was deliberate, measured. I learned David's routines, who he relied on, who whispered in his ears. I never rushed. I observed. I plotted. The town knew John Thompson as patient, wise, reliable, but David's arrogance blinded him to the fact that he was playing against a man who had built a life from nothing. Late nights, I'd sit on the porch, sipping my coffee, listening to the wind rustle the cornfields, reminding myself, dignity is stronger than fury. Justice doesn't need to scream, it waits, and when it strikes, it cannot be ignored. Soon, the first domino fell. David received legal notices, gently at first, then with increasing urgency. Emails were sent, phone calls made, inquiries from the town bank arrived. Panic crept into his voice during phone calls I occasionally intercepted. I remained calm, serene. Decades of life had taught me patience, observation, and the quiet strength of integrity. Each time David flailed, I saw his arrogance crumble. He thought me too old to fight. He thought my age meant weakness. But all the years of sweat, toil, and wisdom were my armor. The town began to whisper. Friends, neighbors, even David's colleagues noticed cracks in his confidence. And yet, I never bragged, never showed triumph prematurely. I simply waited for the right moment. It came during the annual Cedarville Town Hall, a gathering David had attended confidently, ready to present his version of events to friends and community members. I entered quietly, documents in hand. One by one, the truths were revealed, the embezzled funds, the fraudulent nursing home letters, the misappropriation of the house. Gasps filled the room. Murmurs spread. David's smug smile faltered, then collapsed entirely. Neighbors whispered, friends shook their heads. John built this town on integrity, and you lied. The applause wasn't loud, but it was steady, undeniable. I hadn't shouted. I hadn't insulted. I had simply let decades of wisdom, careful planning, and truth speak for itself. David's face was pale, his arrogance vanished. My dignity, my life's work, my home, all restored. David is now isolated, left to confront his mistakes alone. I walk my porch each evening, the sun painting gold across the fields, listening to the wind through the trees. Life, at its quiet moments, feels full again. I reflect on the decades, the sacrifices, the hardships, the moments of quiet joy. The lesson is simple yet profound: loyalty and integrity, when paired with patience and wisdom, cannot be erased, even by betrayal from those you love most. I feel peace now, not anger, not spite, but a calm satisfaction that truth and dignity endure. To anyone watching, life can be cruel, even to those who give everything. But dignity, patience, and unwavering integrity are treasures no one can steal. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted most? Share your story in the comments, I want to hear you. If this story touched you, consider subscribing. We share real-life tales of resilience, late-life justice, and the quiet power of wisdom earned over decades. Remember, even in our later years, we can reclaim what's rightfully ours, with grace, strength, and dignity.